Good morning. I am bringing you the chart today of Kim Jong Un, North Korea's leader. Now, there are several reasons I'm bringing you this chart, one of which is that back in, let's see, what date was it? I have a hand rendered chart. Okay, back in May 5th, 2020, it was obvious that this person was maybe not available to come in front of the camera and in front of the people and communicate with them. Something happened. And so what we have, I asked the cards to simply tell me after I rendered the chart by hand, if in fact this person is even still alive. And as it turns out, I don't believe he is. And so I am going to take you on a little journey with me and explain why I see it this way. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share screen, and I've got a new skill. So we're going to go ahead and try it out. And hopefully it works. Okay, so there we are. And this is the Black Tarot that I'm using today. And what happened? Well, I went in and I simply asked the cards, is this worth doing? After I hand rendered his chart, and I realized that astrology is one of these arts that oftentimes is very, very precise in some ways. Now, I realize that a lot of times it's been misused, and so people feel reluctant to believe it's truthful and artful as a way to read. And so that to me is very troubling. So here we have a reading that is very, very simple. I did it in the most simplest of ways for myself so that I could understand what I was asking. And so the first card is the past environment. The middle card is present environment. And the final card is future environment, or what we can, expect going forward. And so where I started the reading for myself was in the middle, of course. What's happening right now? I want to know what's present. And you can see the 10 of Swords, which I had a vision immediately upon this issue coming up in May, which I'm an 8th house character. I have a stellium in the 8th house. It is difficult when it comes to death for me to not notice. I'm very sensitive. And one of the things that occurred for me was that I saw Kim in a room in what he called a golden closet, and where he was enveloped in this yellow golden light. And he told me that they were maintaining him in a state of he wasn't alive exactly, and he wasn't dead exactly. So what I believe was they were keeping him on full life support, and he was essentially done, and he wanted to be released from his body. And so when I saw it, it was quite profound to me. And so just to be fair, I've paid attention ever since. And now there are other readers, Whimsy, who I adore, who also saw him as no longer with us. So, and I've been like really troubled by some of the details that the way this has been presented going forward. So let's just go ahead and dig into the tarot part of it first, and then we'll get to the hand render chart, and I'll explain the chart when we get to it. But we have the 10 of Swords, which means 10 is a completion cycle. It means that very possibly something has occurred that is a completion. And then after you go into the numerology and understand it, then 1 becomes the next number. And 1 says that there's a new journey underway, altogether different journey. And so did he pass is the question. And according to this card, in present state, yes, he's no longer with us. Now let's go to the past state, where we have the Magician. Now this card I just found, I always get kind of creeped out by the Magician. To me, it's a card that says there's something else going on here, that sleight of hand. And whenever I see the Magician in anything, I stop. Like I was doing a real estate deal this year And I might have been last year. Anyway, I did a real estate deal. It was last year. And I kept getting the magician. And turns out my realtor was working not for me, but for the buyer. So, do be careful, because if you're seeing the magician, there's a reason. So anyway, so we get the magician. What does that mean? Well, if you notice that one in relation to that 10, it's kind of suggesting that there was a sleight of hand and something else went on that led to massive change. And if you look at the Page of Cups, that would be an 11, that it was karmic change in a partnership, the loss of one of the partners. And notice the Page of Cups is there, and it looks kind of like a wet mermaid ghost with his hands behind his back, as though he's bound and can't do anything about it. Now, there are several reasons why I don't believe that the person being presented in front of the camera is actually the person whom they're trying to present to us. And I think they have a lot of good reasons in their own minds for such a charade. And so how we're going to go about understanding this is that I'm going to use the North Korea chart on the, let's see, it's on the outside of my wheel in my hand rendered chart. And on wheel is transits. And internally, now this part's the special part. I found a chart for Kim, and it's very difficult to find. You can't find his birth information exactly. You can find the day he was born, but what you'll find is that they'll say things like it'll be scrubbed. The house system will be gone. And I'm assuming a lot of it is coming from India. So it's going to be probably fairly accurate. But I found a rendering that just kind of set right with me what I thought was happening. So I'm going to go ahead and share the hand rendering that I did. So a lot of times I will say this, that it's probably not as common, but I tend to hand render my charts, and I hand render them for a good reason. Okay, so I'm going to go Alt S. Let's see, Alt S. No, didn't. Okay, share screen. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to share my hand rendered chart. Okay, there it is. And as you can see, I have numbers all over. I typically read my astrology in such a way that I'm incorporating many different methods, including some ancient methods. A lot of sidereal or Indian astrology uses numerology. So I tend to incorporate that because I don't believe, I went to a program that doesn't necessarily do this. So if you ever go to the program I went to, astropsychology, please do understand that his methods do not involve this. And he would probably be fairly offended if I made it seem that they did, because he's very particular about how he sees astrology, which is lovely. That's his business, but I have my own ideas. So thank God we all do. And I'm going to bring in what I see. Okay, so what we have is that Kim Jong Un, he was born in Pyongyang, North Korea, a 22, where no matter what he did, something was fated to become a crisis for him. So he became missing, as far as we know, on May the 5th, 2020, which is the date of the transit that I used and you see on this chart. So what stands out to me? Well, he has 5 points in water, 4 points in air, 2 in fire, and 3 in earth. He has 7 masculine planets and 3 feminine planets, 4 cardinal, 3 fixed, and 3 mutables. We were aware, May the 20th, that something was wrong. And when I do the numerology of that day, I get a 5, a 5, and a 4. which suggests that there was a completion cycle for him that day or around that time, and that perhaps we would not be seeing him again, which is really what has taken place. So, and you'll notice that in the 11th house of groups, I found this really interesting. You've got Neptune right on Pluto in terms of, let's see, make sure I got outside. Yeah, the North Korea wheel, just on the outside, you've got Neptune, which is the planet of crisis. And then in addition to that, you can barely see it, but where I'm putting my little cursor right here is the sun. And that's in transit, going over the cusp into the 12th house. So we're talking a crisis here took place. And the group leader rolled on into crisis and was in a fight for survival. You can see Aries right there. Moon sitting really darn close to Aries, right? Moon in Pisces is going to be kind of an energy where he doesn't know himself. Now let's just go back to what's true. We know that he did not attend many events as things were unfolding in his country, and where as a people, they were used to him being at these events. That was highly unusual. Another factor that's highly unusual and continues to be highly unusual is that their new decoy person doesn't seem to speak in front of the camera. What we do seem to see is old clips from time to time, but definitely it is not the same person. Now, you ask yourself, well, how could that be? They can't, get the people there to believe that their leader isn't their leader, that their leader is probably not with us anymore. Well, let me go backwards a little bit. This is a very poor country, and not everyone has television, and not everyone has a lot of exposure to media. And it is entirely possible that what they have of him is old images, occasional images. Yes, he's everywhere there. But them showing these little flashes, how do we know they're not just doing that for our benefit? Maybe occasionally for their benefit, but who knows how it's presented there, because we're not really allowed the information. Okay, so now we have Uranus by transit in Cancer. So something shocking and unexpected. And then in the 3rd house, where the information is really not at all clear. And notice that Leo's close by. Like, okay, we have a show for you, a really good show. Watch out. We're going to show you how this is done. So, I mean, this is a pretty interesting. So in Leo, you have the limitations, right? They have Saturn in the 4th house. They've got some serious limitations, what all the can be presented, and this is by transit. So they're in a bit of a pickle to, and then you'll notice that they have Venus 3 and 36. They've got to present something that looks like that's creative, that looks like teamwork to the humanitarian cause, a 9. And then you've got Saturn, a 29, which is an 11, something fated happened. And again, a 9 to the collective, something very large. And then you've got Pluto in the 4th house, something shadowy and dark and transforming and death-oriented. 6 within the family of the Korean people. That's a 9, fated to humanity. So it you could go back and forth, and this is in Leo. So it's like now, what are they doing to compensate for it? They've written a screenplay, more or less, right, and said, okay, let's just kind of make this look a little better. Now I apologize. You can see that I can't do all the numerology, because the way the original chart that I took, that I decided was probably the chart, was really rendered poorly. I mean, and it was rendered poorly purposely for the purposes of people like myself not being able to figure out his birth time, because that's a powerful piece of information all in and of itself. But I got enough that I can see what happened. He's no longer with us. Now, I'm going to show you over here. This is the chain of dispositors. And I used whole sign in the inside of this chart. I can't say that's whole sign. I don't know. I'm going with it, whatever it is. But why I'm using whole sign is I'm studying to be a medical astrologer. I'm finishing up psychological astrology, 4 more classes. Yay. But I'm finishing up a medical astrology, or a psychological astrology, moving into medical astrology next. And I believe what happened was that Kim got a problem with his kidneys. Now, why do I say that? If you'll notice this patch of circled stuff here, I actually wrote it down in the wrong house. This Mars, Pluto, Saturn bit should be in the 7th house. Now, what difference does that make? Well, if you'll notice that the 7th house is in Scorpio, something infecting and toxic, Saturn limiting. He gets 6 and 6 within the family. And then that's going to be a 12 that's creatively going to change things dramatically. Pluto, too, within his partnership, and that was retrograde. So it is going to kind of go back and forth, and it's going to be in retrograde. That's kind of interesting because it's like his death has not been satisfied. We don't know that he's dead because they're not telling us that. And then you've got Mars, 28 degrees, which is going to be a 10 and a 1, an ending and a new beginning. He's not with us. He is not with us. What did he die from? I believe COVID. I believe he got COVID, and I believe he had kidney disease. I believe that he had an underlying disease of kidney disease. He was sick to begin with. And so, and he was quite overweight. And if you look, you can see that here is Uranus, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's not quincunx. It's opposition to, yeah. He's got all this opposition right here. Uranus, Sun, Mercury, where no amount of them thinking through it is going to change what's just happened. He's not there anymore. He's just not there. And again, that Sun going over a cusp from where this is kind of solid and, where we're fighting for our survival, but it's in Taurus, where house and home. And that again is going to roll over the cusp into the 3rd house, where, there's going to be some information that's going to come forward. And I believe that means eventually they're going to tell us the truth, which I would certainly hope so, because it's rather disgusting to lie to the people of the Koreas, but they've been doing it to the peoples of Korea for this long. I guess for them, why would they change their policies? It's and I don't believe that the sister is really in charge anymore. Now let's go through the chain of dispositors and just try to understand better. So it starts out that his chart starts out, it's disposited by Venus altogether, but how does this work? It starts out where he's aggressively thinking about toxic ways to put limitations on his people for his own ability to expand. And his expansion involves money, shock and awe, and crisis. And he sees himself as that leader who is receptive to the crisis, the limitations, the toxic insertions, and the aggressive ways. And I think that one of the major things that I see here in this chart, and I see often, is that when you live your life in such a way that it is toxic, dark, and not healthy, that you develop illness. I lived my life, my vocal cords, I was told that good girls don't tell bad stories. And so I learned very early on that I don't talk about if the uncle touches you. You don't want to tell mama that, because that will really upset mama, and she loves uncle. And if you, and many of us have these stories that are really, you wonder, how the hell does this happen? How the hell do we get so disassociated? But we are a disassociated people, not because we're a bad people, but because we're told that we have to present in such a way that it looks and feels and acts in this really Pollyanna positive way. And it's not healthy. It isn't healthy. Now I'm Sag rising, so I have, and I have Jupiter in my first house. So, it really can be Pollyanna. So I can really understand that point. But we have to get past that in some ways, because when we live in fantasy, our body pays a price. We can't fool our bodies. We can fool others. We can wear our masks. We can do a lot of things. And it's all about the mask. And the mask you wear is the body part that goes. And in this case, he wears a mask. Kim wears a mask, that he's this partner to this country, this leader who's false. And it has led to illness. And I really feel sorry for their decoy, because eventually he's going to probably no longer be with us as well. So it is a really sad, in a lot of ways, story. So I'm going to go ahead and stop share. And with that, I am going into medical astrology school starting in July. So it's like eminently coming up, and I'm so excited. I've already really started studying. So I'm well on my way in the program as it is. And I'm in a study group. So I'm excited about that. And so I would like for you to hit the like, share, and subscribe, because I don't grow without it. And this is a case study for Kim. It is not meant to be political in nature. This is just meant to explain to you something that's been going on, and I've been seeing it for a while. If you have any comments, please do leave them. I would love to hear your opinion of this. And thank you very much for joining me.